All right, today we're tackling a story that really sent shockwaves across the entire American political landscape. We're talking about the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. We're going to break down what happened, the immediate fallout, and what it all means, based on reporting from outlets like Reuters and the Boca Raton Tribune. You know, right after the attack, this one question really seemed to capture what everyone was feeling, this deep sense of anxiety. Are assassins going to assassinate freedom itself? I mean, that really cuts to the heart of it, right? What does this kind of violence mean for political speech, for the whole country? So to even begin to answer that, we've got to start with the facts. What actually happened? The details are just stark. It was September 10th, 2025. Charlie Kirk was speaking at an outdoor event at Utah Valley University in front of a big crowd, about 3,000 people. And that's when he was fatally shot. And you have to remember, beyond all the political headlines, this was a personal tragedy. Kirk was just 31 years old. He was a husband and a father to 2 kids. But, to really get why his death had such a massive impact, you need to understand the role he played in American politics. So, who was Charlie Kirk? What made his voice so influential? Well, his rise started really early. Get this. At just 18 years old, he co-founded Turning Point USA, and his whole mission was to push conservative ideas on college campuses, which he saw as a space totally dominated by the other side. That organization, that really became the bedrock of his entire career. And his reach was just massive. We're talking 5.3 million followers on X alone. And that's not even counting his other platforms or his super popular podcast. It just gives you a little glimpse into how huge his digital footprint really was. So yeah, his influence came from a lot of different places. You had his organizations, his podcast, his constant media presence. And through all that, he became a really key, very visible ally of President Donald Trump. He was seen as a major force in getting young voters out for the 2024 election, and he was also a really vocal supporter of Trump's claims about the 2020 election. Okay, so now that we have a sense of who Charlie Kirk was, the focus, of course, immediately snapped to the crime itself. And the first findings from the FBI, well, they painted a picture of a very calculated, very methodical attack. Investigators laid out the sequence, and it is just chillingly methodical. The shooter got up onto a nearby roof overlooking the whole event, fired one single shot, and then just fled into an adjoining neighborhood. I mean, this was no random act of violence. This was a planned execution. So here's what investigators are working with. They've recovered the weapon, a bolt-action rifle. They have a description of the suspect as college age. And, this is crucial, they have what they're calling good video footage. That's probably the single most important piece of evidence they have in this manhunt. The reaction to the killing was instant. And honestly, in an age this polarized, it was kind of surprising. It was unified. A massive wave of condemnation came pouring in from literally all sides. So you had President Trump mourning a key ally and Vice President J.D. Vance pointing out just how much influence Kirk had on their administration. But then, on the other side, you had former Presidents Joe Biden and Barack Obama coming out and completely condemning the attack. And that's the key takeaway here, right? The condemnation of the violence itself. That crossed every single political line. And this shock wasn't just contained to the U.S. Leaders from all over the world weighed in. Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu, Italy's Prime Minister Meloni, they framed this as an attack not just on one person, but on democratic values themselves. This global reaction really shows you that, internationally, this wasn't just seen as a murder, but as a symptom of a really dangerous trend. The RNC chairman really summed up the feeling at the time. He called for absolute unity against this kind of violence, saying that Republicans and Democrats must stand united. No question about it. But condemnation is one thing. Consequences, that's something else entirely. This attack wasn't seen as just a one-off event. It was viewed as part of a really disturbing trend. And because of that, it prompted immediate policy action. And check out this sobering assessment from Reuters. They didn't see Kirk's assassination as an isolated incident at all. They called it the punctuation mark on the most sustained period of U.S. political violence since the 1970s. I mean, think about that. They're drawing a direct line back to the turbulence of the 70s.
And yeah, even though decades separate these events, the reporting connects them as part of the same awful pattern. You go from the assassination of a president in the 60s to 2 attempts on a president's life in 2024, and now the murder of a major political activist in 2025.
So, in the wake of all this, the Trump administration responded with a really swift, concrete policy. And interestingly, it wasn't focused on domestic issues, it was focused on the international reaction to the assassination. The Deputy Secretary of State basically put out this warning. He said he was disgusted by comments he was seeing online from people in other countries who were actually celebrating the assassination. And so the new directive was clear. If you're a foreigner who glorifies this kind of violence and hatred online, don't expect to get a visa to visit the United States. Your social media could directly affect your ability to come here. And that brings us back to that fundamental question. This assassination created a really rare moment of unity, of total condemnation from all sides. But once the statements are all made, once that initial shock starts to fade, what comes next? What's the next step for a country grappling with this level of violent division?